And we're back with the Screen Team on today's talk, 930 KWOC and 93.3 FM. This week's show is all about sports documentaries, and we're doing 3 from the 30 from 30 ESPN documentary series. We did one about Wayne Gretzky. This next one is about an awesome rivalry in NBA basketball in the 1990s. Wasn't it late 1990s?
No, mid-90s.
Mid-90s with the New York Knicks and the Indiana Pacers, and more importantly, with Reggie Miller.
Reggie Miller was, as Michael Jordan said, the biggest trash talker to ever play basketball. And you wouldn't think someone who, as quoted, looks like Mr. Potato Head would be a big trash talker, but he would just take subtle jabs at you and get in your head, and you would try not to let him get to you, but by the time he said hi, he already got to you.
That's right. But he had a way of backing it up too. But a lot of people just, talk when they're on the court just to talk, but he had the skills to back it up.
When you were renowned as the greatest three-point shooter to ever play the game of professional basketball, and you come up clutch for your team when they need you, that's why they say he came through in winning time, which is the name of this documentary.
This was directed by a man named Dan Flores, and does the documentary, does it span a few years, or does it hit on that main year where Reggie went crazy?
1993 through 95.
Okay, so it spanned a couple years.
For the playoffs, that is the meat of this. But they go back to Reggie's upbringing and how he had to overcome being in the same house as probably the greatest women's basketball player of all time, his sister Cheryl Miller.
She was pretty good, man.
Yeah, to say the least. I believe she was the first high school player to score 100 points as a female.
Can you imagine that? 100 points?
I imagine being in the same house where you're riding in the car and you get your first start as a varsity basketball player and you score 40 points. An amazing game for anybody.
Of course.
And you ask your sister, well, how was your game? Well, I scored 105. How do you live with that? You know, that's rough. But
after halftime, I'd be triple teaming her or something.
Oh,
man.
no doubt. Like, can we just put all 5 of you on her?
Exactly.
But the best thing about this, they chronicle his career at UCLA, and he was going to be a high pick in the NBA draft. However, he went to the Indiana Pacers, who, in the state of Indiana, if you've seen Hoosiers, you know how much they love high school basketball, and they had a native son there named Steve Alford, who they wanted the Pacers to draft under all circumstances. He was the leading scorer for Indiana the year they won the national championship in 1987.
He was a great player, man.
Great college player. He did not get drafted by the Pacers. They took Reggie Miller. They were already dead set on it.
So, hold on. Was Alford picked before then, or did they have the chance to pick Alford?
They passed.
They passed on.
He went late in the draft to the Dallas Mavericks, and he had a fairly pedestrian NBA career. A lot of people were not happy with Reggie because they wanted their hometown boy, which that's just the case, especially when you've grown up watching a guy play with like they did with Alford. So he wasn't too popular early on, but he definitely won them over with his play, to say the least. On the flip side, the New York Knicks, they talk about Patrick Ewing coming up and how the Knicks won basically the lottery when they got the chance to draft him number 1. They sold out all their season tickets. He became the guy. He was going to lead the Knicks back to prominence where they belonged.
Right.
9 years in, up to the point where he first met Reggie in the playoffs, no championships, mainly because of some guy named Jordan. Heard he did that a few times. In 1993, they finally meet in the playoffs. And the Knicks dominate the Pacers because Indiana hadn't seen a lot of success. But by 1994, they said, we knew this team was going to be ready. And we get to 1994. It's a physical, brutal series. And then Spike Lee decided to start running his mouth.
That's another key element to this documentary is Spike Lee.
Extremely important. Of course, famous filmmaker and diehard New York Knicks fan. He's on the front court of every game. And they're terrible this year, by the way. Worst record in the league. But he is a diehard supporter of his Knicks, and he would jaw with Reggie. And apparently Spike's wife would say, you need to sit down and shut up. You're only making him mad. He's going to start playing better. It was a very physical, tight series, and then it got to Game 5, which is a very important game to this documentary. The Knicks are up big in the fourth quarter, and then
it was almost double digits, wasn't it?
It was well over a double-digit deficit. And then Reggie, well, he went off, to say the least. 25 fourth-quarter points. And he's late in the game. The Knicks are up. Reggie hits a quick three. He steals the inbound pass, turns around and immediately shoots a three and banks it. And he turns around and looks at Spike Lee. He just pauses and looks at him. I would have shut up if I was Spike.
Yeah. Well, don't get me wrong. I love that play, but I think he got away with a foul there.
I think he pushed, and then you see him put his hands up like, oh, I didn't do it. And that's another thing they allude to in this documentary, how much the Knicks, and Patrick Ewing said, I hated playing against Reggie because he would get away with drawing fouls and being overly dramatic.
Yeah.
Just feigning as if someone just slapped him and knocked him 20 feet across the floor.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden he's got the packet of ketchup and he's bleeding all over the place.
He was the original flopper, I guess.
Oh, but can we not get... That's a terrible, terrible thing in basketball today. But the Pacers come back. They win this game, and they've got the momentum. They're up 3-2. They go home with a chance. This is to go to the finals. Mm-hmm. Granted, Michael retired. So basically he said, what happens when you take Michael out of the game? Everyone's got a chance. They go home, and the guard that had been defending him the whole series, John Starks, who is a hot-headed, good shooter, good player, but hothead, he decided that he was going to step up and have one of his best games. And at the end, in the middle of Indiana's very, let's be honest, very white crowd. Mm-hmm. It's not the kind of crowd the Knicks play in front of. He goes up and he slaps hands and chest bumps with Spike Lee. They go back to Game 7. It is on. This is huge. It gets down to the wire. And when you're the Knicks, who else do you want to have the ball in your hand with a chance to go to the to win? You give it to Patrick Ewing. They win in 1994. They win the series. However, the next year was when it was really important. The Knicks did not win. They lost to the Houston Rockets. 1995, this one was more important for Reggie. Because for him, it wasn't just about getting the Pacers to a championship. It almost seemed like beating the Knicks was more important because of the morality play, that this was more than a basketball series. It's the idea of country, backwoods, Indiana, supposed country bumpkins in their cornfields, playing on dirt courts and just working on the fundamentals of basketball. Chest passes, you're a good shooter, you defend. In New York, you had guys who were tougher, more athletic.
The flashy, big city kind of thing.
Exactly. It was a mindset, and Reggie always said, why do we have to be the country rednecks? Why is that with us?
Yeah.
When both of these teams were honestly built the same way. Very physical. You did not come down the middle of the court on them, and if you did, you got knocked down. 1995, they meet in the second round of the playoffs, and this felt like the NBA Finals. Game 7 at the Garden. Patrick Ewing is driving the lane on the final possession with down 1 point. He lays the ball up. It looks great. Granted, he has very bad knees, so at his age, he couldn't drive to the basket like he wanted to, so he winds up having to lay it up. It looks good. Everything's in slow motion, it feels like, and the ball grabs a hold of the rim and dribbles out, and he just kind of falls, out of bounds.
Right.
That's how it ended. No one could believe, even Pacers fans could not believe that this great player missed that shot. Pacers win. We conquered it. We conquered, our devil, so to speak. Here's the problem. That didn't get them to the finals. Awaiting in the next round was some dude named Shaq and the Orlando Magic. Pacers lost that in 7, and they Magic went on to the finals
and lost to the Rockets.
They got swept. It was like kids versus men. However, and it's very unfortunate at the end of their careers, neither Patrick Ewing or Reggie Miller ever won a championship.
Yeah.
The Knicks got there 4 years later, but Patrick was injured. He didn't play in the series. The next year, the Pacers got to the finals by beating the Knicks in 2000. Then they lost to Shaq and the Lakers and Kobe. It was a very exhilarating time to be a basketball fan. And all the players were just right for this. You had Pat Riley, the city slicker coach. He used to coach Magic Johnson in the Lakers. And everything about New York just screamed big. Madison Square Garden. It's the world's most famous arena and all that jazz. And then you have humble Indiana, who settled right in between New York and Chicago. No matter how big a star you got, you can't win. It was, and like I said, an extremely exciting time to be a basketball and sports fan.
Most definitely, man. I'm a huge Reggie Miller fan, and I don't know why, because I hate guys who are cocky and
not
mouth
a big trash talker.
I don't like those kind of guys, but I always liked Reggie Miller, and I love this documentary because A, I liked Reggie Miller, and B, I hated the Knicks.
Oh,
I hated John Stark. I hated Charles Oakley. I hated.
See, they also had guys like Anthony Mason.
Anthony Mason,
big physical bruiser. He was dirty, if you ask me.
Yeah. So I was happy to see the Knicks lose. And I love this documentary because the Knicks, kind of show face.
Still haven't won a championship since 1972.
Yeah, it's going to be a while. It's called Winning Time, and it's a 30 for 30 documentary produced by ESPN. We have one more to review, which is called Pony Excess. We'll check that next on Today's Talk 930 KWOC.